Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth, welcome to Little Extra Entertainment Extra. Terry Hart has toddled off back to TMN, but I'm really pleased to have in the studio with me one of the more recognizable faces from your television set. Patrick McKenna is here with me, and we were just talking before we turned on the microphones, and you are one of the rare actors who had an all-out comedy and drama on television at the same time.
Yeah, I was in the Red Green Show, and we were doing that for 15 years, and then I was doing Traders for 5 years simultaneously. So my week would be broken up to, Monday, Tuesday was Traders, Wednesdays was Red Green, Thursday, Fridays was Traders, Saturday was Red Green, Sunday was Learn Your Lines. I did that for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That can't be great
Healthy?
for the rest of your life, right?
No. There's a point where it kind of stops, and you come back after 5 years. You go, oh look, I have a family, and hi, everyone's taller.
The kids
now.
are big.
Oh, this is nice. If I can do it every 5 years, I'll never see them.
Well, I'll tell you that for very quirky and specific reasons, I wasn't unhappy when the Red Green Show wasn't on all the time, and I'll tell you why.
I guess.
Yeah, because everywhere I went, people thought that I was you because I wear glasses and have slick back hair.
Yeah.
And I would explain to them, no, it's not me. Or they'd say, hey, I love your show. And I'd be like, why, thank you. Because
Absolutely.
I had a show on television at the same time.
I gave movie reviews all the time when people stopped me. I did. Absolutely. I get it.
Yeah, and it was very funny. So, but that 15 years.
Yeah.
And you don't get a run like that on Canadian television.
No, and the weirdest part is in getting Canadian television, you don't know you're going to get 15 years. So you're
Right.
doing every year like it's the last year.
Right.
And then you wait and you hear, oh, we got picked up again. And and the show like the Red Green Show, you thought maybe we'll go 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then suddenly every year it kept coming back. The beautiful thing was it was all fan-based.
Right.
The networks really weren't behind the show a lot. So when the fans started to write in, they got to see the power of the people. And that's why things like PBS took over and really made it big down in the States. Niche marketing. This is before cable kind of came in and took over, and you could do that sort of thing. It was really great to watch the fans go, no, we like this show. A lot of people don't get it, but we like it.
Is that show done forever now, or could there be a Christmas special, another movie, something?
I wish there would be, because I had the most fun of my life doing that. Steve's touring around now doing a one-man show.
Is he?
As Red
Green, yeah?
As Red Green. So he said he would never do that, so we thought it was all over.
Right.
But, I'm a little bit old for it now, too, so I think I'd be the Red Green character, and he'd be like a ghost from Christmas Past or something, But all of us just had such a great time. But no, the lineup would be there in a second.
Well, we're here today to talk about a couple of things. You have a movie opening this week, and you continue being the busiest actor going. Margarita opens. It's a comedy, a drama. It's a dramedy.
It's a dramedy.
It's a dramedy.
Yes.
And it is, according to IMDb, behind the facade of a beautiful urban home, a combination of complacency and bad investments has left power couple Ben and Gail disconnected, resentful, and just about broke.
Yeah, that's a great
So sort of ripped from the headlines kind of thing, right?
That's the beauty of it. And we shot it a year and a half ago, just before all it kind of this broke.
Yeah.
And it's about the nanny as Margarita, how we refuse to change our lifestyle, but we want to have money. The way people are like that. Right. So we can't let Margarita go because she's actually raising our children, fixing our home, doing all the things that nannies do for very little money.
Yeah.
So they realize that she's more important than the money, and that's the adjustment the family has to make. And it opened at the Carlton last week. It's been held over for another week because of great audience attendance.
Oh, great.
And in Sudbury and Calgary as well. So for a small Canadian film, it's just doing fantastic.
Yeah, and it will eventually blossom out because we're heard in Montreal, we're heard all over the place. So you'll have a chance to see this. Keep an eye open for a couple. Margarita, Hard Rock Medical.
Yeah.
Again, continuing the streak. Do you ever you had 2 shows going for 5 years? Do you ever take any downtime?
I try not to because in Canadian industry, you don't know when it's going to stop. So while doing Hard Rock Medical, there's 13 episodes. There's 4 of them I'm not in because I had to go back to Toronto and record a bunch of cartoons. So it's like you have to write the doctor out of the series for a while, then he's back. And they were great about bending to the schedule.
Well, it's funny. I just read a story. Bud Collyer was the original voice of Superman on the radio, and he desperately wanted to take some time off, but he was so popular, they didn't know what to do. They couldn't not have the voice of Superman there. So that's when they invented kryptonite, and they had him trapped under a sheet of kryptonite for 2 weeks while Bud Collyer relaxed and sunned himself on an island somewhere.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, see, my kryptonite is my in-laws, but that's okay. I get it. You're trapped.
So Hard Rock Medical is an interesting show for a number of reasons. TVO. TV Ontario. This is the first show that independently produced show that they've helped finance, right?
Yeah, which is fantastic because they made a lot of hard choices last year, letting a lot of people go and refinancing and restructuring. So for them to stand up now and say we're going to produce something, a lot of heads turned to say, what have you chosen to produce?
Right.
So it was the demands were high. And the show is wonderful because of that. The producers and everyone has to go through it with a fine comb and say, well, we have to be an educational component. Well, how do you have the educational and the drama and make it entertaining? And Derek Diorio and Smith Corinda, the writers and producers, they really found that line. And it's been really wonderful to watch the audiences going, I really like that show. And there's always that little surprise in their voice, that it's Canadian, it's new. They watch it because they're friends.
That show's good.
Yeah. They phone you. You know what? We liked it. That's great because it is a very smart show and it's easy to watch that way.
Right.
And it's great for the family because kids are learning things. Like my nephew phoned me, who's 10, and he was thrilled by the autopsy scenes and stuff, and the vocabulary and learning stuff. It respects the audience, and that's a great line for TVO to walk.
So, how would you describe it in a line? Is it? Would you say it's St. Elsewhere set in the Canadian North?
I would say it's sort of like Northern Exposure meets Grey's Anatomy.
There you go. Yeah.
It's sort of that sort of idea because we're in the North. We're really using the Sudbury environment. It's a character in the show because it's about doctors training young doctors to work in the North.
Right.
What would they be like? It's not just your downtown urban choices. It's working with different native beliefs and with that community and what they need to be understood to actually go into town and get help instead of dealing with themselves.
Right.
So you're delivering babies on skidoos and the bottoms of mines, and you're helping people out of canoes and axe wounds and cancer as well. It doesn't stop just because you've changed the environment.
In the first line of the synopsis that I have sitting here in front of me, it says, extracting buckshot from the back of the head of a hunter in a mosquito-infested tent at the edge of a peat bog before you've had your first cup of coffee is not the best way to start your day.
That scene was hilarious to shoot because they hired a man from up there to be the background performer to play this guy. I've never seen a human being so big in my life. His head was bigger than my chest. And we're supposed to move him onto a gurney at one point, and it's like, no, we need like slings and we need people underneath, and this is ridiculous. I've never seen a bigger man, and he was like the gracious guy. People just lined up to play up there.
Because you're shooting in Sudbury.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me a little bit about that. I know some shows that have been shot in Barrie for a little while. They were shooting there, an hour and a half or so away from Toronto. And one of the problems would be is that if they discovered that they needed a certain prop, there was nowhere to get it in Barrie, so they'd have to drive a couple hours to Toronto. Sudbury being even that much further removed, were there those kind of issues?
Oh, absolutely. The particular one was we had a whole thing set up for the corpses we were going to use. They use these mannequins that are very lifelike with a rubber-type texture and latex and so on. We were guaranteed these and so on. When the guy went down to Toronto to pick them up, sold them to another movie. So we got ones that were like 4'11". It's like you had to shoot around these type of things.
They look like aliens or something.
It's ridiculous.
It becomes Roswell.
Yeah, it was
Roswell meets.
But the creativity is what is so wonderful about things like that because suddenly you have to adapt. And Red Green was like that too. You didn't have the money. You had to be creative with what the space you had. So Sudbury, a lot of things, they've been doing a lot of shows up there for a few years. So they suddenly wrote in what they had up there, the infrastructure. They knew that the crew could shoot certain things and other things they can't. So that was all built into it. So ahead of time going into these scripts, they were so tight knowing what we could do because with a Canadian budget, you can't fool around.
Yeah.
So it had to be just this. And it's a cast of 13. That's a lot of people to tend to.
That's a big cast for a Canadian show, for any show, really.
Yeah.
I'm speaking with Patrick McKenna. His new show, Hard Rock Medical, is on Saturday nights?
No.
Sunday nights.
Sunday nights, yes, at 8 o'clock on TVO. And again on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yep. So you have lots of chances to see this or set your PVR. He's also in Margarita, playing at the Carlton Cinema in Toronto right now and in another couple of cities. You have lots of chances to see him this weekend. When we come back, we're going to talk about the character that he plays on Hard Rock Medical, Dr. Fraser Healy. So stay with us on a little extra Entertainment Extra. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth, welcome back to a little extra Entertainment Extra. My pleasure to have Patrick McKenna, nephew Harold, the show Traders. It goes on and on and on. Margarita, a new film opening this weekend in Toronto and a few other selected cities across the country. Look for it. You'll have a chance to see that. Kind of a rip from the headline story about a family living just above their means.
Just above, yeah. And then it comes crashing down.
Also, a new show on TVO called Hard Rock Medical. Now, you play Dr. Fraser Healy. Tell us a little bit about Fraser Healy.
Fraser is a ADD person, so he fits in the North really well because you adapt quickly. You're always looking for something new. Right. And I have ADD myself, so the writer kind of built on that in the sense of that a lot of emergency room doctors and emergency paramedics and things have ADD because there's so much drama. You're actually super hyper-focused in those moments. Right. So it really fit to, that's the type of person they'd be looking for. So one of the candidates that we actually hire as a student is ADD as well. But my guy also has a history of alcoholism, and he's sort of the Hawkeye Pierce in the camp. He's got a smart aleck answer for everything. And we're tracking him a little bit as when does a person finally stand up and try and be on their own as opposed to second in command?
Right.
And that's the journey my character's on. It's great the way they folded all that drama in, as I said earlier, about the educational components as well. So you're learning about the sociology of group pairings and things like that, of what makes a group dynamic. There's so many layers in here that's just great to play. And as a comedian and an actor, you find those moments of now's a fun time, now's a serious time,
right.
now you work, now you play. And finding that shift that these are human beings and really just creating a person is the greatest thing. And Frasier is so colorful. When they offered it to me, it was like, I would love to do that. I've never been to Sudbury, right. So that's a given. I want to do that, as well as there's a character here that you can play. You can get dramatic, you can get whiny, you can get fun, you can get aggressive. There's all sort of these fun layers.
Well, it's interesting to me because I think as a Canadian actor, maybe it's unlike our friends to the south in America who, you can focus, you can be a comedian and make a living down there. You can be a dramatic actor. Here you kind of have to do everything to make a living, right?
You better be, because I also do writing and I work with Second City Directing. I do speeches about ADD to schools, you commercials, cartoons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been lucky enough to kind of be successful at all of them as you go, and then you can kind of stay there. So when movies slows down, suddenly you're doing cartoons for all. You're never really leaving the industry. You're expanding the circle.
Right.
And that's the way I always, when I go to schools and talk to people there's so many schools graduating young artists now, and they think, well, I'm going to be a dancer. I'm going to be X. I'm going to be Y. It's like, that's terrific, but there's a whole alphabet.
Yeah.
So really load up your tool belt because it's going to be required at some point.
Is giving back to you because you've been so successful in the last 20 years? Is it probably 20, 22, 3 years?
At least 20,
Yeah, it's been a long time. You've been so successful. Is it important for you to give back to young students and people just entering the business?
All the time. It's all I do now. I'd say 70% of the work I do now is charity work, and based on learning education schools, learning difficulty schools, working with parents, working with school boards, and doing those type of things to the artist schools and throughout the states as well, because everyone's definition of this show business is a little bit different. And because I've been fortunate enough to touch a lot of arenas, I can kind of discuss what it's like there.
Right.
So if you want to talk about stage, I can do stage. You want to talk about comedy, you want to talk about drama, you want to talk about cartoons. I've been there a little bit to say this is what you might need, this would help, and so on. And to talk about the journey that I've been through, that you can't plan these things. People go, I want to be a star. That's how vague is that? Well, then be a sniper. You'll be, either you'll get your 10 minutes, but it's the work. So that's really all I do now. Because after Red Green, I was pretty lucky I can kind of semi-retire and pick and choose different things now. My lifestyle's completely changed. And that became a real important component. Because when I was young, there were some great mentors out there, and there was a lot of roadblocks. There wasn't a lot of dialogue going on. You just kind of get it or you're out. And that's not really fair to a young person who doesn't know the rules yet, or is just, stepping on the thin ice and isn't sure how to play, or they're jumping on the thin ice. It's like there's a lot of nuances you got to figure out.
When we come back, we're going to continue speaking with Patrick McKenna. He's the star of Hard Rock Medical. Stay with us. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth. Welcome back to Extra Entertainment Extra. I'm Richard Crouse. Joining me in the studio, we have the star of Hard Rock Medical, Patrick McKenna. Check it out on TVO at 8 p.m. on Sundays. And it's an interesting show because it takes how much crazy medical jargon do you have to learn to play Dr. Fraser Healy?
Oh, so much. That's the most exhausting part is the language, because you can, when a person's lying is their eyes look up all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You got to own those words. You got to. It's not the first time you've ever said that medical term. You got to really own it, man. That's really hard. We have a person on set, and oftentimes because I'm up in Sudbury alone, I'll go to the pharmacy and I'll just say to the pharmacist, "How do I say this? How do I say that?" And he's excited to help because it's like, "Hey, you're the guy on TV." It's like, So I do whatever I can to really learn it and walk around and say it and break it down into syllables and own it, and it's exhausting because if I learn it a certain way and then other person's learned it completely different, you're both kind of going, no, I went to a pharmacist. I got backup for mine. You're going to have to change yours because I'm petrified. If they tell me I got to change, I'm screwed.
Absolutely. So 13 episodes for this first season. And do you think you'll be back for another 13, or is it two? We're about midway through, right?
Yeah, we're up to episode 4, rather. And everyone's loving it. I think the show is going to have no problem coming back.
Right.
What would be difficult would be the structuring of the business model because TVO can't carry this alone. So APTN's involved as well. We have some people in New Zealand, France. There's a lot of people to make this happen, and to get all those ducks back in a row.
Every movie you go see now these days, it'll start off in cooperation with blah blah blah, and there's 35.
Those credits are longer than the cast. All those always, and it really
it's all
takes
financing.
it's all financing, and then the smallest dollar gets the loudest voice sometimes.
Right.
So suddenly we're trying to make this show people happy in France that they get it. One of our first sales was to Russia because the Canadian tundra looks so much like it. They get it.
Yeah.
You kind of don't know where this is going to go. So now if we're speaking to a Russian audience, what does that mean? And everything is in flow and flux all the time.
So we just have a couple of minutes left. We were speaking off mic about advice that you would give. You speak at schools and to emerging actors and all that sort of thing. Let's in a couple of minutes. What would you, to any actor that's out there listening now who's just starting their career, what would your advice be?
Diversify. Don't label yourself yet. People talk about their career. They're saying that you don't have a career. You're creating a career.
Right.
You don't know what that's going to be. I never would have thought drama would be in my life, but it stumbles into it, and you better be ready when the big light shines on you. So diversify. Learn how to work with your voice, work with your body. Learn to go to different clubs and see different types of theater that's out of your comfort zone. You don't have to be in it, but just go experience it. Take different workshops with people you're not very comfortable with, again, to push yourself out of because in Canada, you have to do a little bit of everything. You may end up being a host on a cooking show.
Yep.
You didn't plan that, but that's what's going to be happening.
At least you get to eat every day.
There you go.
If you're a host on a cooking show, you get fed every single day. Keep that in mind. And, for so often, in my career, I've diversified as well. That's the thing that has really paid off for me. And each and every one of those things is interconnected. Mm-hmm. Each and every, whether it's a writing gig or the radio gig or television, whatever, they're all interconnected and they all feed one another.
And we've been so adaptive that way. It's great because I think the way Canadians have been making television and movies for so many years, the industry has finally dumbed down to that.
Right. Where
we can make these shows on $1 now. So when people say make a webisode instead of a TV series, fine. It's the same amount of production. You really have to have a crew, you have to have actors, you have to have a script.
Yep.
The broadcaster is the only thing that's different. And really that's in flux too, where that's changing. We're going to see people watching more internet, or they're going to watch television or television through the internet and so on and so on.
Some sort of weird hybrid of both.
But we're able to do all that stuff because we've been making things with a camera and a couple light packs and 9 actors. We've been ready to go.
Yeah.
The world is ours now if we really step forward. It's a great opportunity for Canada.
Those are encouraging words from Patrick McKenna. He is the star of Hard Rock Medical. It's on TVO Sundays at 8 o'clock, and then it reruns
on Wednesdays and Fridays as well.
Wednesdays and Fridays. Check it out. He plays Dr. Fraser Healy, set in a medical school set deep in the heart of the Canadian Shield in Northern Ontario. So something uniquely Canadian and uniquely ours. Also, check out Margarita this weekend. If you're in Toronto, it's at the Carlton Cinema. And a cool story about what happens when you live just slightly outside your means. Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.